I feel like it's all divine timing too, like I probably wouldn't have, when I really started getting into other forms of art was when the pandemic hit. And there's been a lot of periods like that in my life where it was almost by force to get into those things because there was no music happening. And that kind of has like catapulted me into a lot of different things, just circumstantially.
Rob Ruckus,
Nick Collins,
Kate Clover,
Keith Semple,
Isaiah Mitchell,
Billy Harvey,
Tim Howard. Check it out, Almost Famous Magazine.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Hang, brought to you by Almost Famous Magazine. I'm your host, Scott Salinger. Thank you for hanging with us, getting to know musicians, learning their stories, and knowing them well beyond just their music. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and share. If you've been with us before, have you shared us with your friends? You're coming back for more. You must like us. Also, if you prefer to take your podcast on the go, you can get us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. Today on The Hang, I'm joined by Ojai-based singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer. What a resume Sam Blasucci has. He's known for to many from his psychedelic folk rock outfit, Mapache. But he has stepped into probably his most ambitious solo chapter yet with Physical Dream. It's a 28-track double LP. That is huge. And was recorded on a remote island in British Columbia. Blending indie folk, Latin influences, mysticism, romance, and even field recordings from anti-ICE protests. New releases like Delicadeza and the LPs that he's put out reveal an artist chasing healing, resistance, and what he calls a higher place inside this life. I am super stoked to have him with us because I have many, many questions, and he is heading out on the road. He's going to be in Europe, the UK, and the US. You have to get out there and check this out. So Sam, welcome to The Hang.
Good to be hanging.
This is going to be fun. I definitely want to dive into the album because I have a ton of questions. But what I really love to do to start this and get to know you is start with your relationship with music, right? How did that relationship begin? Did you find music or did music find you? And how has that fueled your life to where you are today?
Started very young for me. My dad's a musician, and he taught me anything that I, would like to think that I know about music. Definitely came from him. And a lot of just the people and other musicians around me in my childhood and young adult life. But yeah, ever since I was a kid, I would be running around on stage around my dad while he's playing or even playing with him or something ever since, the early days.
That you're fortunate to have had that influence and experience. Was there something though about it that you're like, you know what, this is going to be the life for me. This is what I want in my life.
Not really. I mean, the whole concept of what am I going to do with my life didn't really occur to me until I was older and I was dealing with, all of the sort of silly things that adults do in their adult life, which is, try to get a bunch of money and, do all this weird stuff with their lives or with their careers. Up until then, I was kind of just having a great time playing music. And I still am, but it never occurred to me, like, is this going to be my career or is this going to be like, my vocation? It was just sort of what I did and what I knew. And now I've figured out a way to sort of build my life around it because, like I said, it is just kind of what I do. Whether or not I wanted it to be my life, it's very clear that it's just what I do. And so just kind of figuring it out around that.
I have a friend who has a phrase, happy accidents. And I think sometimes happy accidents lead us to the best places. You were fortunate to have that influence of your father and look where it's taken you for sure. Yeah. Now, given the music that you make, who were some of the early influences on you from musical style? Was there any genre or style of music that really drew you in foundationally to create that original base of music that you're experiencing?
Yeah, really early days, I really loved Enya. as a kid. I was big into Enya. My mom was, still is, but was always a like a nutritionist and a wellness and yoga instructor, and that whole world. There's a lot of Enya going around our house. That was a big early, kind of first intro to music. I was also a huge Beatles kid. Both my parents, especially my dad, being a musician, were very, they educated me a lot on on a lot of that 60s and 70s pop and rock. So it was easy for me to get into that. And then I feel like when I hit high school, I met some friends that sort of split me off into some other directions. Like I had a friend, Clay, who I play with in Mapache, my songwriting partner. He introduced me to the Grateful Dead, which ended up being a big pivot for me. And then and then I moved to Mexico for a few years, and then I was educated by a bunch of people down there who showed me a lot of really great classic Mexican music that hugely changed my life, and especially my musical life. So yeah, it's always been ever changing, and depending on kind of where I am and who's showing me the way.
It's interesting that you brought up Enya because I don't think the internet knows that was your early influence. But when I was listening to your music, I'm like, it took me back because I had her first album. I mean, her first was her biggest commercial success, really, here, at least here in the States.
Right.
And I was listening. I'm like, like there is certainly influence there in your music. I could
if
feel
you listen really hard, you can see me on the couch as a 10-year-old listening to Enya in headphones.
That's great. That's I don't know of many 10-year-olds who would actually be willing to say that. They'd probably be talking about some rock band or something like that, or some pop. So for sure.
Well, I have my mom to thank for that, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think everybody should be thanking your mom for that because it's definitely had an influence on your music. Physical Dream, it's a mammoth double record. And you don't see a ton of artists doing double records these days. You got 28 songs. Take us to the kind of the germination of the idea around the album, where it started, and some of the milestones along the way, because 28 is a big number.
Yeah, it's certainly the highest number of songs that I've ever done in my musical career in one project so far. And the idea originally, to answer your question, wasn't necessarily to make an album that big, or actually to make an album. I was at Spa, the Korean spa in Los Angeles, and I had the idea for a Physical Dream as a painting, and just kind of as a concept of stepping into your own creative dream, whatever you want to create for yourself in your life. And it was initially just going to be a painting, which I did a couple drafts of, and then simultaneously I was making all these demos in my living room, and it just was this period where I was waking up every day and just kind of immediately starting to record, before breakfast kind of thing. And eventually it piled up into, I think there were almost 70 demos. And then it was like, oh, okay, it's all kind of making sense to me. Physical Dream kind of feels like what this is becoming. And so I kind of made it into an album at that point. And then, yeah, narrowed down the list. And I worked with Johnny Payne, who's he's the one who owns the studio in Souk on Vancouver Island. And I've worked with him on my first two records. He produced the first two records. This one, he acted as engineer, but I took them all up to his house and we worked together on the whole thing. And so, yeah, that's kind of the summary of start to finish development of the project.
I'm interested. I mean, besides music, because I noticed looking, doing a little research. What other artistic endeavors are you involved in? Because you obviously have a lot of visual elements to not only the covers for free releases, but also if you go to your website, are you in other visual mediums as well? Do you besides painting or anything else? Because you really definitely, I could see where getting that idea of seeing something in a physical form can give you a springboard into musical form.
Yeah. I mean, I paint like a 5-year-old and, it feels great to paint. I love painting. I would still, call myself a painter in that sense, but I'm certainly not trained or, there are a lot of people that can paint things that I definitely can't come close to. But like any medium, it's just a way to express things, and I like to do that any way I can. I love to write the most, like music and poetry. I think is the the most productive medium for me. But um, I feel things when I paint that are different than when I write, and same with cameras. I'm not a trained photographer or cinematographer, but the hands-on nature of it too, I really like, and I can just, I don't know, it's just a way to sort of process things, and the same reasons anyone makes art, and I find a lot of joy in bouncing between mediums. It's all kind of.
Well, I'm gonna diverge a little bit as also a photographer. How was it that you picked up a camera and decided that you were going to craft that way? I'm always interested in this day and age where, quite frankly, everyone walks around with a camera, right? That also takes phone calls. What was that like for you? What drew you to photography to find that as part of your mixture, your artistic mix?
Yeah, we used to have disposable cameras on our rider in the green room. They were, at most of the venues, I was always surprised they were so good about getting one for us because they're pretty hard to find, in the later years. But we would finish a tour and have 15 disposable cameras or something, and we'd just, be firing off pictures like we were photographers. And I think that may have been sort of the start, when Clay and I, Mapache was on the road in the early days, and we'd just be disposable, walking around with disposable cameras all over the country taking photos. And then that kind of became, we became comfortable at least with the idea of looking through a lens or a viewfinder and like seeing something through that in that light. And then I met some people that were actual photographers later on, and they instructed me like, hey, look, this type of camera would allow you to do these kinds of things. And, it's always somebody who has been there before and can educate you on it. So that's how it happened with photography and anything else in my life, really. It's learned through community.
Yeah. So are you a Leica guy, a Nikon guy, a Canon? What's your
I think
camera of
at
choice?
art, I'll always be a disposable guy.
Do you do any instant photography?
I've had a few like point and shoots, and they always break. Right now, I got a new one recently that I can't even remember the name of, but I kind of just bought it on a whim at this camera store in Ventura, near where I live, and that's kind of been my favorite. I think it's called the Rebel, but I can't remember the exact model number. And it's a Canon.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. No, I think that's great. I mean, if if you ever get a chance to sit down with Ben Folds, he got heavily into photography. I think similar to the way you did back when Ben Folds 5 was first on the road. He traveled around with a camera, and then he just kind of photography took him in another direction. So I think that's great. It's always good to chat with another photographer and understand why they decide to pick one up. Because to me, it's very intentional, right? It's a very intentional form of a way to see the world. So I enjoyed learning why people do it.
I feel like it's all divine timing too. Like I probably wouldn't have when I really started getting into other forms of art was when the pandemic hit, and there's been a lot of periods like that in my life where it was almost by force to get into those things because there was no music happening. And that kind of has like catapulted me into a lot of different things just circumstantially.
Let me ask you this. It just dawned on me because noticing some of the things on your website. I do primarily concert photography. I love going to visit somewhere and doing street photography. A fair amount of things, though, that I saw on your site seem to be a little on the abstract side. Do you have do you have some type of photography that you enjoy more than others? What are you looking through the lens to find in the world?
Well, I certainly think of things more in terms of like artists that inspire me. Um, Again, if I had maybe more of an education on things, I would think more in terms of style or genre. But I think, some of the artists that have really inspired me are like Ingmar Bergman and Jonas Mekas, who I was also taught by, other filmmakers and photographers that have kind of shared with me their taste. But they include a lot of abstract imagery in their work, and that's kind of what's inspired me a lot. So it's not quite so intentional, but certainly like that's where it comes from.
No, I like it. When you find something you enjoy when you see it through the lens, and then you can find it to have it look the way that you see it and the way that you want it, I think is great. And there've been times I'll take a Fuji instant camera and even pull it out and start photographing while going through a car wash through the windshield. Crazy things like that. So I think that's great. And well, hopefully on this tour you'll come back with a lot of photos. Maybe there'll be a photo book in it afterwards. And you know what? Everyone's sitting here listening to us talk photography, and we actually came to talk about your album. So why don't we hop back to that? Delicate Days, though, I listened to it and I listened to it again and listened to it again, and I love the fact that it's in 2 languages. And the thing that got me the most was the transition between the two was almost natural. It wasn't jarring. It was almost like it was meant to be that way. How did you come about deciding that you wanted to have the song in 2 languages and develop it that way? How did that come about?
Well, the song is sort of about a more like dream-like existence, sort of an escapist, running away from your problems, running away from your life into something that's more, it's in line with the physical dream concept of just sort of entering a dream world that you're in charge of and that you create, and very much an escapist mentality. And so that just involved, for me, being bilingual. It involved just kind of a free stream of consciousness flow of language. And so it just sort of felt right. It wasn't so intentionally, scripted or selected between the verses or anything. It was just sort of like the Spanglish that came out in that moment, which is not super typical for a lot of the songs. I do usually put a lot of thought and sort of dissect things as I'm writing, but this one was very much just sort of let it flow out and then, let it be after that.
Well, I mean, it has that quality of just, it feels organic, I guess is the best way to put it, right? It feels organic. Like the song is almost meant to be in 2 languages. Just the way, I don't know if it was how you produced it, but it just flows really well. So I really enjoyed that. It would probably take us hours to go through all 28 songs. So I've got a question for you. With that much music and with the audience that we have who may be just learning about you now, for what it's worth, and I'm an album guy. I mean, obviously you are. I can see over your shoulder. You put it down on the turntable, you listen front to back, right? Mm-hmm. But we live in this world of, shufflers, I guess is the best way to put it. For you, in that 28 songs, are there some real standout moments amongst all the tracks that you're like, you know what, I think if I had no idea what this was all about, and I was someone who is one of those shufflers, are there some moments that are more stand out to you that will draw people in? Are there moments that you feel it speaks to the listener in a certain way that'll, instead of shuffling, it'll get them to go back to the beginning and listen to the whole album?
That is really difficult. That's very much, like which child would you choose? Only worse. I feel like I could pick a child maybe, but I don't know. I honestly, it's not even so much that the album feels like they all belong together, but it's just that there's so many different styles and like pieces of my history spread out through the whole thing that there's no like really like standout in that sense. But there are, and that's kind of why we decided to do these 4 EPs in the rollout, so that we could sort of allow them to be together in different ways, so that people could kind of see them in each their own individual light, before it comes out as one big massive pile of songs. And so each EP is kind of divided stylistically a little bit, or just kind of energetically of which songs kind of fit together. And that was kind of the aim, was to accomplish what you're saying, to kind of like let certain things stand out to different, audiences that may be listening to all the material in this massive, pot of songs.
So sounds like then that this is really an album of a journey, and it almost requires a listener to start at the beginning and go on the journey with you.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be easy to get lost if you kind of just popped in the middle, So I say start to finish is the best way.
No, I like that. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the way we listen these days, but unfortunately a lot of people do it. But I think one of the greatest joys that I remember growing up and before we moved into this digital age, and now I live vicariously through my niece, is sitting down and putting a record down and investing your time in it.
Yeah.
It's almost a lost art.
Yeah. Yeah. People need to take more road trips if they can. I feel like it's really just the social media doom scrolling. I mean, the time is there. I know a lot of people don't have time, and there's a lot going on in people's lives, but I feel like so many people I know use the time that they have in their commute, on the trains or in the car, doing other things that are kind of more of like our addictive minds are there with the scrolling and But if we just kind of replace that with more music, that's the idea.
Absolutely. I mean, I think focusing on the investment you make in the experience of music is a bit of a lost art in today's technology world. I just saw my niece last week and brought her a bunch of albums and was talking to her about her friends. She's 15. And she has friends who at 15 are now collecting albums, building their own libraries. And they're once again getting together and making music a more communal experience, the way, you listen to it in front of a speaker instead of with these things in your head, and it becomes this solitary thing.
Yeah.
And I'm energized. I'm energized by people of that age who are starting to realize that experience it matters. For sure.
Yeah. I feel like usually people get older, at least in my case, getting older has made me realize the things that I would like to do or the things I'd like to change. So the younger you realize, kind of the better of where you're prioritizing your, time and investment like that.
Yeah, I think we've had 30 some odd years of very fast technological boom, and in that time, perhaps a couple of generations back are realizing that maybe that speed that we put into everything from communication to experience may not have been the best thing. kind of slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Just take it easy. What can the audience expect on this tour? Like, are you going to perform the entire album? Are you going to mix it up with your entire catalog? What's that experience going to be like for them?
We're going to play a lot of stuff from the album. We're going to play some of the old stuff as well. I don't think we'll be playing the entire album. We may play every song, but not every show will have the entire album, which is sort of in line with our history with this band. We've never really liked to stick to one thing every time. We like to sort of play stuff that's old, that's new, stuff that hasn't come out yet. So they can expect a lot of that, I suppose. A little bit of everything.
Well, tell me a little bit about the band. Who are you taking on the road, and what qualities do they bring that really congeal your sound, the sound that you produce, and the feel you want?
Well, the band changes based on the tour, and that's sort of something that I like to have a revolving door of musicians. I've never had a musician in my band that I didn't love, and it's just been really, it's been really educational to have so many different, people in my band that are really just teaching me more about how to perform and how to play. So for this European tour, there's two Italian guys that will be joining me, and then my drummer from here, from home, and I will be flying out. And so we'll be doing a 4-piece. And then when we come back, we have more touring in the Pacific Northwest and on the West Coast, which will be kind of more of our local band, including this percussionist, Andres Renteria, who's played on every record of mine since I started making albums, and a number of other, Los Angeles-based musicians that I've been playing with for a while.
Well, everyone needs to get out and see you. I mean, it's definitely, hitting the road these days is different than even just pre-pandemic, and the mechanics of the business these days, and the opportunity to connect with an audience and be able to sustain going on the road is a little more challenging than it's ever been. So I think everyone needs to get out, buy a ticket, and go see perform. And I think that's great that you surround yourself with a different cadre of musicians. I can only imagine that it makes you a better musician over time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. If someone was watching us right now and wanted to really go deep and dive into your musical career, both with Mapache and with your solo career and things you've worked on, where's a good place for them to start that journey besides this new album?
Well, I do think the show is the best place to start. I kind of live for performing live. That's the part of music that I enjoy the most, more than recording. I love recording as well, but playing live in a room with people and with a band is my number one favorite part about the music business. So I would say that is a place you can see us at our current best and at our current state, and we always, that's kind of what we live for. Recordings wise, we're sort of always putting something new out, and whatever is new is going to be the most fresh to us, and I think is the best place to start.
Do you feel in today's world of digital distribution and a sense of immediacy that we have, do you feel compelled to be putting new music out all the time, or do you want to get it out there, or do you want to hold on to it? What's your perspective on kind of the race for what people, instead of saying putting out new music, new content? How do you feel about that?
I don't really pay that much attention to it. I prioritize my creative expression, which at this moment happens to be at a high volume, just in terms of the amount of content. But that's kind of rule numero uno if you're getting into art from the early days that I've always tried to never forget, which is to not prioritize anything over the artistic integrity of what you're making. Um, and so that's all I really try to do. And then when it's done, I just like to put it out because I think this world needs more music, and also, I'll be off onto the next thing pretty quickly anyway. So got to get it off my plate and out of my hands as soon as I can.
Absolutely. With I think you said about 70 some odd tracks you had for this album. Is there plans to revisit some of the ones that weren't used on the album later in the year or for future releases?
Some maybe, yeah. But that when I was working on that batch for Physical Dream, that was a couple of years ago now. It was like 2 years ago almost. So since then, there's been a lot more recording and writing that I've been doing. So I'll be definitely releasing more music soon this year, and recording a lot more, probably more with more recent, songs rather than going back to the old stuff. But you never know. Sometimes the old ones kind of pop back up randomly, and then you revisit them, and it feels fresh again.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes we just need some time away from something for it to feel new again. I look at Squeeze has a new album coming out that was actually their first album. They recorded it and it was rejected by the label, and now 50 years later they've revisited and re-recorded it, and they're releasing that. And I think right now Peter Gabriel's in the process of his new album. The germination of that came from years and years ago. That he sat down and revisited, kind of like old friends, right? So
Yeah.
I think that it's great when you can take things that are old and put them in a new perspective.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm really interested in these days, and I think is a good conversation to have, because a lot of people, when it comes to their own physical and emotional health, tend to keep things in. As a musician, as someone who's making their way through, a world where now it's a constant feedback loop from the public. A lot of people hide behind their words, their behaviors and actions. What are some things that you do to keep yourself in the best mental health for yourself so that you can remain creative and have the experience that you want, as opposed to being influenced or distracted by outside sources that bombard us all the time?
Well, I think that everyone's mental health is different, and everyone's processes are very different for that. For me, any of the patterns that I developed that were unhealthy for me mentally, that got in the way of my music, of everything in my life, they were all things that I had sort of learned somehow when I was developing, when I was growing up and becoming myself. And so for me, the big thing has just been stripping away all of that stuff, all of those kind of learned habits or things that I thought were true about myself that aren't, that were sort of indoctrinated into me. And I very much realized it's nothing to add into my life, rather to like strip away all those things that were, covering me up, or that were on top of, the way that I wanted to be.
I think
get some exercise,
Well, I like the way that you put it. I mean, I think that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the things that we experience, although they may not be physical, add a physical weight, and that can hold you down. And sometimes people don't realize that it's removing that weight. Maybe sometimes it's shifting it, but it's not removing it. And I think it's important that we all recognize that and lift ourselves from that weight. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's super important. One of the things we love doing here is putting great things out in the world. We've had some unbelievable experiences that we've heard from artists who have been with us. whether it's people showing up to performances or connections that they made. And one of the ways to do that is putting something out in the world that is an aspiration or a dream. If you had an opportunity to spend a day with an artist, and since you work in many forms, it maybe it's not even a musical artist. I don't know. But if you could get into a room and be creative with someone for a day, who might that be, and why is that person at the top of your list?
That's easy. La Rosalia for me. She's probably my favorite current artist. She's a fearless artist. She's brilliant. She also, in terms of collaborating with someone, seems very just creatively and socially smart and easy to sort of get creative with. And yeah, I'm a huge fan, and that would probably be my dream, collaboration if I could,
Well, now that we've put it out there, you never know, it could happen.
Yes.
And you never know who's watching and who they're connected to. So it's out in the wild now. Yeah, so we have to see
I'll be watching my email day and night after this.
Well, we'll see. You just never know. You just never know it can happen.
Yeah. She's a huge inspiration on all my music, and especially on this album, and especially on the EP, the third EP from the double album, which is called La Mia. And that's, I definitely owe a lot to her and her sort of creative bravery that's inspired a lot of this music. So.
Oh, I think that's great. I hope we can get the two of you connected. I think that would be fantastic.
Let me know if you hear anything.
I will. Absolutely. Don't worry. I know where to find you. Yeah. It's also super important for us that we support our artists. There are ways that you could listen to someone's music for free, but none of them are getting phenomenally rewarded by it. I think maybe if your last name is Swift, you may have the best chance, but otherwise it's not a great way. So purchasing an artist's music, supporting them, buying tickets to shows, buying the merch they have on the road, and supporting their art is the most important thing that we can do to keep an artist going. So there'll be links down below so people can purchase the album, all your work, your catalog. I know you've got Bandcamp, and you're on most of the platforms where you can purchase music. Yeah. So we'll have those down below for sure. One of the things that we do like to do though is when you're not making your own music, right? And obviously you've got a great record collection behind you, I can see. And if you're like, the funny thing is, if you're like some people I know, that's just part of what's in your home. I don't know if you know Sharif Dumani at all. No. He's out in LA, and the first time we had him on, both walls were filled with albums, and he goes, "Oh, you should see what's in my kitchen." So obviously, when you have a passion for having records, you have a lot that you listen to. When you're not making your own, who are a couple that you listen to that help you kind of, either energize you or escape a little bit, that if we're just sitting here having a drink and you're like, Scott, I've been listening to a few people that I'd love to open you up to, who would they be and why them?
Well, I kind of have my lighthouse artists that are kind of like my all-time inspirations that I revisit frequently and sort of never cease to inspire me. And some of those are like Leonard Cohen, one of my favorite artists, Bjork, Prince, Sade, Ronnie Wood. Those are kind of more of my go-tos. Always, I'm going to find something that resonates. They just seem to be in the right vein for me. And then outside of that, I like to listen to a lot of different things. Changes, daily. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of Natalia Lafourcade, who I really like. I'm looking at a record right now on the turntable by Les McCann. I love a lot of jazz, and that's another thing that my band members get a lot of credit for is for teaching me a lot of the music that I know. Um, but oh boy, in terms of what do I think, what would I like the people to start listening to that I'm listening to now? That's harder. That's probably the hardest question. Just because there's so much that I want to just show everybody everything that I like, but we have enough time for that. So.
Well, I mean, you've definitely hit on a number that I enjoy for sure listening to, and I think that it's, music comes and goes. I mean, you get in a time in your life, and maybe there's one or two artists that you're like, you've got them on heavy rotation, and there are times where you switch it up,
Yeah.
And I think sharing who we listen to opens people up to new doors and new opportunities, so that maybe one day you get outside of what you're normally doing. You go, hey, I'm going to try that. And as well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of influence of artists in your music. Listening to you before we tape this, figuring out that, wow, I think this guy likes to jam out to some Enya, it gives us a greater opportunity to get inside the mind of a musician and where they're coming from. So I think that's great that you've got that many, that we could take a few hours to go through them all.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot. There's a lot of things that are non-musical as well. A lot of filmmakers, a lot of literature, a lot of just life that goes into, everything that goes in and out of your psyche that eventually comes out in art form is all to be credited. So.
Well, you hit on something there. As a film school graduate, who are some of your favorite directors, favorite films?
My favorite film, that's another one that's really hard. I think if I had to pick one, my kind of go-to for that, one of the earliest films that I watched that kind of was like, oh, there's more to film than I thought, is The Green Ray by Eric Romer. I actually have a poster of it on my wall. It's definitely kind of was a turning point for me in terms of how I thought of movies. And that director, Eric Romer's great. Like I said, I love Ingmar Bergman. There's an animated French film called My Life as a Zucchini that I really like. I would put that in my top list somewhere. I tend to love things that are either extremely intense and dark and existential, or like children's animated cartoons. Not much in between.
Well, I mean, look, I having studied animation, I respect a lot of good animation. I think animation done well, and I don't know why, but I think that in the Pixar-lated world we live in, seeing some of the animations that are done in other countries where they may not have the same tooling as others nowadays, but they find a way to do it. I think it enhances the creativity. And I kind of like that a little bit more these days than the homogenous animation that's coming out. And from a film standpoint, I remember the first time I saw Citizen Kane, and there are not a lot of films that I revisit over and over and over again. But one of the things about Citizen Kane, forget even just the story, is the cinematography on that one. I mean, back when you could watch a film on a screen, and black was black, white was white, and we could appreciate the grays in a black and white movie.
I've never seen it.
Oh, well, I won't give it away for you.
I had never seen The Wizard of Oz.
Really?
I've never seen Sound of Music. These are all movies that I'm listing that usually when I say that, they gasp. And it's been so long of that now that I don't know if I'm ever going to see those movies. But those are definitely on my list. Someday I'll see them.
Well, you never know. One day you may just have some inspiration to put them on and see what you've missed.
Yeah.
So for sure. Like I said, it's been great getting an opportunity to know you. I can't wait to listen to the entire album. There's a lot on it that I think I'm going to connect with, especially understanding kind of where you've come from and what you were looking to wrap into it. I really suggest everyone make sure you go to the links below, check out Sam on tour, experience that live music, support him, support his band so that he can continue to bring it to you. And, hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again with another release. And maybe the next time we'll do a top 10 list for either, animations or greatest films.
Yes. Yeah, we can make the next one 4 hours long and just go through everything.
All right, we'll give it a shot for sure. Everybody, thank you for hanging out with us and coming back to these episodes week after week. We really appreciate it. And Sam, I wish you all the luck. And everyone, just do yourself a solid these days. Make sure you make time for yourself. Show yourself some love. Show yourself a little compassion, and do it to others too. Show it to others. We need more of that in the world, because together we're greater than just ourselves. So, thanks for watching, Sam. I appreciate it. You take it easy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was fun. Nice to meet you. Thanks for hanging.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye, everyone.